I'd like to welcome you here to the University of Vermont, into the city of Burlington. I am Doug Lantagne. I am the Dean of Extension here at the University of Vermont. But what brings me to this role today is I'm also the Director of the Food Systems Initiative here at the University of Vermont. I sometimes joke I'm Switzerland because I am not in arts and sciences, but I'm not in agriculture, because here Extension is a separate entity that sits with the Council of Deans. And so I work very closely with production agriculture, but also with nutrition, which is in the college here, but also with those in anthropology and those within medicine and those within engineering and those within education and the like. So on behalf of myself and all the summit organizers, we're glad to have you here for the third annual UVM Food Systems Summit. We have a broad range of participants today. We have over 100 from what we call academia. We have our nonprofit sector. We have several from government. We have nearly 100 students in the room over the next 2 days. We have some from the business sector. We have community members. We have farmers, and we have members of the press with us over the next day and a half. And we're pleased you're all here. We like that kind of mix, because you'll notice you're in round tables and not in long rows of chairs, because at breaks and in the question and answer sessions, we want interaction between the audience and our speakers, our keynote speakers, and also our panelists after they've had a time. There's also another conference that's coming to UVM, and it starts tomorrow night as our Taste of Vermont reception starts. We're collaborating on that, and that will lead into the collaboration and innovation across the food systems conference. So there's a lot going on in food systems this week at the University of Vermont, and we're very, very proud of that. Let's see, I want to make sure. Bathrooms and all that good important stuff. Out here is the large lobby. Women's bathroom is on this side, men's on the other side, but you can go down a floor. You can go down 2 floors. You could probably go down 3 floors and find restrooms. This is the student center, so there are restrooms on every floor. Feel free to walk around. The bookstore is a couple of floors, no, one floor down below us. So again, we see this as an economic development opportunity for Burlington and the University of Vermont, so buy plenty of Catamount gear before you leave and make sure people know that you came to the University of Vermont. Also, we have a very tight schedule. So we have 1/2 hour breaks. We're calling them networking breaks, like lots of people call them, but we really would like you to quit your networking about 20 minutes into that break and mosey in here, or network as you walk to your seat, so that we can start on time and we can respect the next speakers by being seated, so that we can keep everything moving and we can get you off to wherever you decide to go to dinner tonight on time and not go late into the evening. You'll notice there was not a conference dinner planned. We didn't have 300 of our best friends sitting here with chicken or vegetarian or some other dish, which would have been beautifully prepared by Sodexo. But we have a city here that is well known for a wide range of restaurants that serve a lot of local fare. And so at the check-in table and also on our website, you'll find a list of most of the restaurants where a good amount of local fare is used in the preparation of their menu. There's something called the Vermont Fresh Network here in the state of Vermont, and it works very closely with farmers and with chefs and with the general public to let them know which restaurants, and you'll see a sign in windows called the Vermont Fresh Network. That means the chef and the farmers know each other. They know what the farms are producing, when it's available, and when they can add it into their menus or to design their menus around what's fresh and available from farmers in the region. So that's how we're dealing with dinner. So please participate by looking at the list. We're also recommending or suggesting that if there are 5 or 6 people that you may have never met before, but you want to go to dinner together, just make that reservation, call them. They're expecting calls from folks from the Food Systems Summit, and make your reservations. That way you won't be disappointed if you pick a particular location and find that it's already oversubscribed. Let's see. No, that's not going to work. I'll go this one. We have a number of partners that help us put this on. The William H. and Ann S. McMillan Endowment was a generous endowment by someone that wanted to support actually 3 things: food systems, health, and neurobiology, behavior, and health, one of our spires of excellence. The food systems one, and also one in complex systems. The money moves from year to year to each one of the spires. We have a little bit larger proportion of that we get to use each year in support of the Food Systems Summit. So we thank very much. And in past years, family members have been here. I don't know, I wasn't told if a family member was here today, so I'm presuming not, but thank you to them. The Aiken Lecture Series is another endowment lecture series here at the University of Vermont, named after our former governor and also a former senator of many years. He was the senator that's famous that said, for Vietnam, declare victory and let's go home. So he is a big supporter of food and agriculture and the like. The Office of the Provost here at the University of Vermont. Vermont Tech, which is one of the state colleges, they have an Institute for Applied Agriculture and Food Systems, and they also provided some funds to support this food system initiative. Sodexo, our host here with the food and the breaks and the like, they've made some donations as well as other items that we needed for the summit. And also Green Mountain College, which is a liberal arts college south of here that also has a food systems program. They also generously provided us some funds to support the food systems conference. And I'll talk a little bit about them and others in a moment or two. We also have to thank the Journal of Agriculture, Food Systems, and Community Development. Duncan and company, I don't know if you're here yet. Oh, there's Duncan over there, and Amy, I forgot, sorry. They have worked with UVM, John Hopkins, the Center for Sustainable Living, if I got that name right. I always get the next institution called. They are also a co-sponsor, as well as UVM and Cornell, Iowa. Iowa State. Sorry, the Leopold Center. But the 4 of us came together to provide sponsorship for the journal, and the journal has been growing over the last year, and we think it's a great investment in a journal that addresses food systems, agriculture, and community development. And the panelists were selected in a competitive process, and they will be able to submit their papers to the journal, and there will be a special issue of those that are selected or finally go through the review process and are selected, and we'll let everyone know in the audience what that link is when that special issue is released. So we want to thank our panelists, but also the journal for helping us put on that special issue. So I've already talked about the Vermont Fresh Network. As well, then I'll just move on to food systems at the University of Vermont. Okay, I talked about our sponsors and partners. I forgot to speak about our partners, but we also have the Center for Ag Economy in the state of Vermont. They work up in Hardwick, and they're basically have taken a sleepy town, and turned it into a hub of agricultural entrepreneurship, from composting to soy milk to latex coverings, things that now architects like to take way-based latexes and coverings to put on wood products such as this, because they don't off-gas volatiles. So anyway, we've got a good collaboration with them. Chelsea Green Publishing, Good Job Foods, Intervale Center, which is just down the hill from here, and we took the keynotes on a tour this morning. Middlebury College, the Northeast Organic Farming Association of Vermont, Shelburne Farms, Sterling College, Vermont Farm to Plate, and Vermont Law School. So we've got lots of folks in this state. We work on collaboration and cooperation, not so much on competition. It also helps maybe that we all go after different students, at least in the higher education realm. So it makes it much easier for us, I think, to say we want to be a food systems hub for higher education. And we formed a consortium back in December, and we're working together between Middlebury, Sterling College, Green Mountain College, Vermont Law School, Vermont Tech, or the Vermont State College System, and UVM to work together collaboratively to come study abroad in Vermont. So we hope to see you here at some point in the future. So again, we have a number of reception vendors that we need to thank, and I'm not going to read them all off here, but thanks to them for their support of this conference as well. So what is food systems at UVM? It's a commitment to research, teaching, and outreach. Going on 5 years ago, the university decided we needed some spires of excellence. We've kind of got away from the spires bit, but we call them initiatives now. But the whole point was we have a great institution, we do a lot of great things, but what are we going to highlight over the next few years as being core and critical to our success as a research institution? There were 7 different areas that were provided for consideration by the faculty. There were presidents and provosts across the country that read these proposals, as well as distinguished faculty and others on this campus, and a general dialogue on what they should be. 3 came to the surface. One is complex systems, working with big data and big numbers. One was neurobiology, behavior, and health. Both of those you could clearly see tied to research. But there was this other one called food systems. And this food systems one talked about research, talked about undergraduate teaching and graduate teaching, talked about outreach, talked about the community, and the importance, if we were going to be a leader in food systems, we needed to have a university that was willing to work with other institutions, other nonprofits, with the government, as well as do cutting-edge research and publications from this institution. And so the Food Systems Institute or Initiative is one of the spires of excellence, but it is different because it incorporates all of you, the participants in this Food Systems Summit today. And so we're glad to have you all here as part of that. And so it incorporates the colleges of arts and sciences through ethics of eating. It includes anthropology. Teresa Mayers, we were on a field trip yesterday with one of our keynote speakers looking at migrant workforce here in northern Vermont. It includes geography, it includes nutrition and health, it includes our production folks, it includes our engineering, it includes our College of Medicine. So it is a pan-university initiative, and I go across this campus inviting anyone who's working in anything related to food to help them be part of the overall network so that they may become the best part of their area of expertise in our overall food systems umbrella. So we really need all of them. We see this as a great opportunity for cutting-edge solution development to deal with some of the issues relating to food systems. This also ties the campus. We have the Real Food Challenge, which is an undergraduate student group here on campus. And they work with Sodexo and Allison Neihart, who helped put this together. And you may have seen her name numerous times, and I have to thank her. I can't see where she's sitting at the moment, but I have to thank her a lot because she's the one that did a lot of the organization, as well as Kate and others. But we have that. We have a food systems graduate program going into its 3rd year this fall. The first cohort graduated 5 students in a research track. This fall, we have 5 students in the research track, 1 in the professional track, and we've accepted 14 students for fall of 2014. There's a farmer training program here at UVM, and there's 25 students here today. It's a 6-month intensive program that provides hands-on, skill-based education in sustainable agriculture. We want them to impact our food system in a positive way. We want them to be farmers, but we also want them to be activists. We want them to be educators. We want them to be policymakers going forward. And so they're here learning a lot over a 6-month period of time. We also have something called the Breakthrough Leaders Students that are also another program we run. And it has 25 participants here in this room today. And it's a combined online and on-campus cross-disciplinary program that addresses problems and opportunities relating to sustainable foods, food systems, and leadership. And I have to say, last night we learned there's an opera singer in the group, and I couldn't resist because I can see him at the back of the room, and he gave us a few-minute rendition of a particular opera, and it was excellent. So we have a whole range of individuals who join us in those classes. You know, I told, I'm just right on time. I forgot to start my timer, but I guess I timed it ahead of time, so I'm doing okay. So why do we do the summit? We do it because of all of you out there and the opportunity to bring keynote speakers here to hear their ideas and discuss their ideas, to bring panelists, to have them share, and for us to learn from them and them to learn from each of us. So it's to further our awareness of important food system issues, and so that is our goal over the next day and a half, to have that discussion, to have that conversation, to listen and to speak, and to hopefully understand a little bit more. We would like to glean anything you may be doing in your states and your localities so we can do it here in Vermont, and we welcome you to glean anything from Vermont that you would like to bring back to your jobs in your state and your occupations. This is the 3rd year of the summit. The format is a little differently this year. We did TED-style talks the last couple of years, but folks said we didn't get to talk enough. We heard everyone give us great presentations, but we didn't have an opportunity to interact with speakers, so that's why we have the networking breaks. That's why we have the Q&A after the keynote, why we have the Q&A after the panel, so please participate in that. We have 2 mics, one on either side of the room, so if you have a question, we're going to want you to get up and stand in line and ask your question, and I'll be the moderator at that point when we get there. You'll also be getting an evaluation online, and since this is a new format and a new approach that we're trying, we really plead with you, and also since I'm an extension director in evaluations and understanding the impact and the behavior change that we may have on our audience or on those that participate with us, I really request that you do give us an evaluation so we know how we did, how our speakers did, and what our focus was like. So, we consider Vermont a leader in community-focused food systems and an opportunity to share that with you and for you to share with us. So there are 3 themes that we have developed this summit around. The biophysical constraints, what is it that we can do on the land base that we have? How do we balance land use and environmental considerations? So we'll have Roz Naylor talking to us about that. Can we ecologically, economically, hydrologically, and energetically have a sound and intensive food system, agricultural production system? We also have policies, the geopolitical context in which we work, the power of the food system, the power in the food system, food sovereignty, who controls it, who owns it. And so we'll have some conversations in that realm. And in addition, we have behavioral and cultural considerations. What are the social factors that affect how we eat? What are the factors that make us choose to eat what we choose to eat? What's our human ability to change? These are large questions that we want to delve into the Food System Summit tonight or today, but also going forward into the future. And we've asked each of our keynote speakers to speak to each of these themes, or one of these themes, followed by panels of researchers and practitioners who I already said were picked through a competitive process. but they give us, and a practitioner we've selected. So we have a boots on the ground perspective. We have the large umbrella perspective from our keynotes. We have some specific perspectives where people have done research in specific areas, and we have that practitioner, how does it affect us, or how does it affect me? So we're grateful for the ongoing support of a whole bunch of people here in the state, as I've already mentioned. But I would like to introduce now our first welcoming speaker, Chuck Ross. He's the Secretary of Vermont Agency of Ag, Food, and Markets since 2011. He works a lot on water quality, but more importantly for me, building Vermont's community-based agriculture through farm-to-institution partnerships and ensuring Vermont's landscape endures into the future. That's a lot on your shoulders there, Chuck. Chuck was also 16 years a state director for our Senator Leahy, who's our senior senator here in the state of Vermont. And he's also currently president of the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, advocating at the national level for state agriculture and particularly food safety. And that group will be meeting here in September, and hopefully, well, we will. It's not hopefully. We will be intermingling with them, showing them that there is a lot of importance in the type of community-focused agriculture, community-focused food systems work that we do here in Vermont and in New England. So with that, other than being a farmer in one respect, but having a full-time job besides that, he will welcome us today and tell us a little bit about Vermont. So thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Doug. It's a real pleasure to be here, and as I guess the first, if not among a number of Vermont officials, let me welcome all of you who are not from Vermont to Vermont. I work for Governor Shumlin, and if he's about anything, it's about jobs, and when we have people like you come to Vermont, that helps us on the job front. But more importantly, I'd like to welcome you as co-collaborators and what I think is one of the biggest and most important issues facing the 21st century, and that's what and how are we going to raise the food we need to support the population we have. Along with food, I would suggest that energy and water are two other parallel issues that we are going to have to address in an ever increasingly difficult ecological environment going forward in the 21st century. So the work that you all do is absolutely paramount and critical, not only to our economy and culture of today, but certainly that to which we look forward to in the 21st century. So I'm the Secretary of Agriculture. It is one of the best jobs in the state of Vermont, and it's because of the people who are in agriculture. And they are dynamic, they're interesting, they're evolving, they're innovative, and they are engaged. And that makes my job enormously interesting. And what I'd like to do today is offer reflections and observations and maybe a few suggestions on two topics. One is ag literacy and the other is what we're doing in Vermont. But before I do, I want to ask you a few questions. First of all, how many of you have or do work on a farm? Have at one time or have worked on a farm? Excellent. How many of you have ever driven a piece of equipment in the meadows, or pastures, or fields on a farm? Please raise your hand. How many of you have plowed ground and picked stones? First thing I would like to observe is that each and every one of you who raised your hands have built upon the work of those before you. The soil you're tilling and working is a product of the people before you. The second thing I'd like to ask you is how many of you thought you knew quite a bit at one point along the line when you were doing your farming work? Come on, let's be honest. How many of you thought you kind of had some stuff figured out? Sir, first of all, a lot of you raise your hands on the easy questions. Not many people are raising your hands on this one. The point is, when you have plowed that ground and you have run that machinery and you have done that work, you have learned from somebody else along the way. You didn't just go out there and start the tractor up and hook onto the haybine or the chopper or the plow and start going. You had to learn from somebody else. My experience, I learned from a guy by the name of Larry Lantagne, French-Canadian, first generation Vermonter, moved from Quebec. He taught me how to do carpentry. He taught me how to do plumbing. He taught me how to weld. He taught me how to drive a tractor and fixed up the tractor when I had a broken leg, so I had a hand clutch instead of a leg clutch, so I could still be raking hay in the middle of the summertime. Larry Lantagne, he was my mentor. The other mentor, my father. Interesting, isn't it? Anybody work on a family farm? It's always interesting to learn from your parents and from your siblings, because anybody who didn't raise their hand when I said, did you ever think you had it right, have not engaged with your family, because that's what goes on. I always had it right, and my father didn't always have it right, but I learned from time to time he actually was right. And then I also learned from the people on the other side of the fence row. My competitors, the people I was actually competing with to get land. I would compete with them every year, but during the day, during the harvest season, I also know I could jump in my truck, drive over to their place at 7:30 in the evening, and ask them for help, and they'd help me. They were not only my competitors, they were my collaborators. I make those observations about learning from others and learning as we go and depending upon those that came before us, because I found the front page, the cover page on Time magazine, quite interesting, the latest one that came out, suggesting that scientists got it wrong on fat. The scientists got it wrong. I happen to be a big believer in science, but it's interesting when the scientists are pointed at as getting it wrong. So if the scientists get it wrong, I would suggest to you that we all may want to temper our self-righteous correctness in what is now being described as the food fight in agriculture and food systems. Because if the scientists are getting it wrong, how is it that I can be so confident that my point of view is right? I would observe that in the past, we used to actually advocate cutting trees down to the water line so we could dry our hay. We used to plow the soil in the Midwest black because we wanted to improve the soil. And now you can't fly into Iowa and find black ground. And as I just observed, we used to think fat is bad, and now we're starting to think it's, oh, well, there's some fat that's actually really good. We don't always know that we're right, even when we think we are right in the moment. And I would suggest to you we're having a debate in the farm, food, and agriculture arena that needs to evolve to a discussion and to problem solving around our shared values that we all pursue in one of those arenas. Values around access, health, economy, ecology, and yes, even morality when we start talking about how we're going to feed an ever-increasing population on a globe with a decreasing ecological foundation. I ask you to move from debate and name-calling and yelling to discussion and problem-solving around the values you explore with the people with whom you may disagree. We didn't get to the place where we can farm our fields without learning from other people and depending upon the work of the people before us, and we're not going to get it all right by being self-righteous and thinking that we have it all figured out today. The issues before us that need this discussion, let me just list a few. Water quality, critical issue in Vermont. We were having the finger-pointing circle debate in Vermont, and now we're having a community discussion about how to address water quality. The Food Safety Modernization Act. If you want to have a debate, you can go there, or we can have a discussion about how to get it right and why spreading manure in a growing season may be okay to grow crops on that very same soil and not have to wait 9 months as FSMA originally called for. Or we may want to have a discussion about whether or not we can actually age our cheeses on wood planks. Wouldn't that be interesting? Or we may want to talk about climate change or genetic engineering, where some of the community of people believe the science in climate change, don't believe the science in genetic engineering. And some of the people who are the great proponents of genetic engineering don't necessarily believe all the science in climate change. We could yell about that, or we could discuss that. Or my favorite Vermont experience was Bill and Lou, the oxen two from Green Mountain College. Two oxen who had done their deed teaching students how to pull a plow and farm a field with animal power, and they were past their time. And there was a democratic vote on that campus. Every faculty, staff, student voted to slaughter those two animals and move them through the food system on campus. Their computer system got hit by 3 million hits in one day of animal rights folks saying they were doing the wrong thing and shut the computer system down. That is not what I call a discussion. But it was based on a discussion that the decision was made. There's a difference there. So I offer those set of observations to help us recognize that literacy, agricultural literacy, is really critical going forward. In fact, I think it's our biggest challenge going forward, because we've evolved from a community of 99% of us involved in food production one way or another to 99% of us not involved anymore. We need to learn from one another. And I'll close by citing what I think is Vermont's opportunity. Vermont, and I'll tell you from my perspective, as the president of the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, all my colleagues, Vermont is being looked to in many, many ways. And I will tell you that we are seen as a leader in many, many ways. And where we're leading is building community-based agriculture, where we invest in our economy, we invest in our ecology, we help build our culture, and we help build our communities by supporting the agriculture in our communities. That's good for Vermont. And when we do it, we're engaging the very people, the 99% of us, in our direct marketing and direct sales, and educating them about what's involved in the food system and our agricultural system. That is a critical chore. It's a critical idea, and it's a model that's evolving in Vermont and being replicated elsewhere. It's not the only model for agriculture and food, but it is an important one, and we're doing it well in Vermont. And I hope you'll gain some more knowledge about that while you're here. So let me conclude by saying this. Thank you, UVM, for being a leader and partnering with other institutions of higher education around food and agriculture. Thank you for hosting this discussion, because this is the role of a university and educational setting, is to have a discussion. And let me suggest to all of you and urge you to work hard, utilize the most underutilized communication skill there is, listening, be open to new ideas, discuss, learn, and improve your agricultural literacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck, for those comments. I'd like to now introduce Tom Barry, who is the Policy Advisor for Ag Conservation, Energy, and Natural Resources to U.S. Senator Patrick Leahy since 2009. How do I put the chair in the way? He was the Natural Resources Coordinator for Senator Jim Jeffords as well from 1997 to 2006, and he stayed on for a few months with Senator Sanders as he was transitioning to office. He's also worked as a Nature Conservancy Director here at the Lake Champlain program, and is a 21-year member of the Burlington Intervale Community Farm Community Supported Agriculture. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. As Doug said, I work in Vermont on agricultural and environmental issues for Senator Leahy. And I'd also like to introduce my colleague, Kate Ash, who handles nutrition and related issues for the senator in Vermont. So if you want to get in an in-depth discussion about school lunch programs and some of the changes that are proposed there, I'm not your guy. Talk to Kate. Senator Patrick Leahy has worked on agricultural issues intensely for his time in the U.S. Senate. He's the most senior member of the U.S. Senate Agriculture Committee. He's been on that committee since 1975 and has his fingerprints all over 7 farm bills. And when I say that, I say it knowing that tomatoes are not ripe or overripe yet, because I suspect that with this group there might be some folks that would like to throw vegetables, bragging about the senator's involvement with the farm bill, because a lot of people, I think, who focus on food systems understand that the U.S. Farm Bill is at best a mixed blessing as far as sustainable agriculture and evolving our system in the direction it needs to go, as far as that goes. But I'm going to walk you through the 15 titles of the Farm Bill and explain. No, not really. I haven't got all afternoon. I'm going to very briefly draw a couple of food system analogies to the Farm Bill, and just to kind of put in context, I think, a way of looking at things, which is in talking about how to evolve a sustainable food system. We're trying to get a bead on a really huge, complex system, and we each have our own lens. As a legislative aid, my lens is the Farm Bill, which is a huge and complex bill. So what can the Farm Bill tell us about the food system and some directions we need to take? First, again, it is big and it is important. Our food system is the biggest, most important thing, I think, that we deal with. The Farm Bill is certainly the biggest, most important piece of legislation that has been or will be passed in this Congress. It spends more money than any one of the appropriations bills other than defense, and it spends it for 5 years, not just 1 year. It is by far the biggest money bill passed in this Congress. It affects agriculture, which occupies more than 50% of the land area in this country. It's the largest source of water pollution in the United States, and I say that as a great supporter of farmers. And it's the largest user of water in this country, and of course, is what we eat. So the food system is huge, important, and complex, and the Farm Bill is, again, the biggest, most complex bill that will be passed in this Congress. It's complicated. The food system's complicated. The Farm Bill is complicated. Right out of the gate, it deals with nutrition and the second largest social safety net program in the United States. Then we get right into water quality, as I said, several water quality and environmental regulations, risk management for farmers, commodities trading. You can go down the list. It is a very research, a lot of research titles that are used by this university. It's a very complex bill, and it needs to be, because it deals with our food system, which is large and complex. The Farm Bill is evolving. We've had new farm bills every 5 years, more or less, since at least right after World War II, and each one is a little bit different. And it seems to evolve slowly, but a lot of scientists in this room, evolution, which is part of the title of this conference, is a slow process in general by comparison with how most of us lead our lives. I'm going to point to 2 different areas of evolution in the Farm Bill, which I think say something about the direction that we need to go in evolving our food system. We almost had what's the term in evolution of sort of a quantum leap or a paradigm shift. We almost had one of those in this Farm Bill, where there was a decided effort to pull the nutrition programs out of the Farm Bill. And in fact, they were pulled out for a while in the House of Representatives. And that was so that the more conservative bloc that was leading the House of Representatives, or at least making most of the decisions, could subject those nutrition programs to some substantial thrashings and budget cuts, while leaving the agricultural components of the Farm Bill more or less harmless. In the end, those two came back together into a single bill, and they really needed to. I think by pulling the nutrition programs out, you also pull out a lot of the political support for the Farm Bill. Much of the farm country in the United States is being quickly depopulated because agriculture is getting big and mechanized, whereas our nutrition safety net program unfortunately, it says something about our economy, but has enrollments have grown in leaps and bounds. And so if you divorce nutrition from the agricultural programs, not only is it subject matter a silly thing to do, but the political wherewithal to actually address the other agricultural issues, you may lose that in the long run as well. So in the end, that evolution didn't occur, and they're back together. Another area where I'd point to a slow evolution in the Farm Bill, but it was somewhat over 20 years ago when Senator Leahy wrote and introduced the National Organic Standards Act. At that time, organic agriculture was really a weird little sideline being pursued by a few hippies in Oregon, Colorado, and Vermont probably. Now it's with it being put into the Farm Bill and evolving over a series of Farm Bills over the past 20 years, 25 years, it's a $30 billion plus share of the market and really helps drive the conversation about sustainable food systems. So just a little glimpse at how big and complex and important the Farm Bill is, and I think it reflects at some level, again, looking at it through legislative lenses, which what I use, the food systems. And then the other thing I think that can be learned is, in the end, in this Congress, we did adopt in February a new Farm Bill for 5 years. Again, I would argue the largest, most substantial piece of legislation adopted in this 2-year Congress. And if a body that many people think epitomizes inefficiency, vested interest, and perverse incentives like the U.S. Congress can adopt a Farm Bill, this group of smart people can figure out how to evolve our food system. So good luck over the next couple days, and I'll be around as much as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next is Jenny Nelson. She's an agriculture policy advisor for Senator Bernie Sanders. She has worked for Senator Sanders for over 15 years. She's also served as a representative in the Vermont legislature from 97-98. She is in partnership with her husband, Bill, and they own and actively manage and operate their 200-acre or 200-cow dairy in their hometown of Rygate Center, along with their sons and grandchildren. And if I read this right, the grandchildren are the 9th generation of Nelsons on the farm. So a long heritage here in Vermont and working for food systems and for Senator Bernie Sanders.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for being here. This is an important subject for sure. Last time I was here, the senator himself was speaking at the podium, and it was the NOFA conference, the winter conference that draws about 1,000 people here to Vermont. And I know he's always inspired when he comes and recognizes that folks really are deeply invested in growing good, healthy food. Tom gave you a great rundown on the Farm Bill. Sometimes I like to call it a people's bill or a rural bill because so much of it has to do with the people of our country and, really kind of a small portion with the farmers. But anyway, when you look at federal legislation and the things that the senator deals with on various committees, immigration is part of the food system, and alternative energy is part of the food system, and our environment and our global climate change, they all impact on our ability to grow food, as you well know. It is a big system. It's a complex system. I was going down through UVM's list of all these internships, and I thought, boy, that really gives you an idea of how complex and how vast the food system is. There's everything from community gardens and special foods to child craft food programs and mechanical design. As I was reading through, I couldn't help but think about being asked to take part in a career day for 8th graders and sophomores in high school. And so I made a 3-fold poster of sorts. Of course, I was supposed to be there representing the senator in a government job, and I couldn't help as a farmer to make sure everybody knew that they could be involved in agriculture without being, a dairy farmer and milking cows every day. So, when you stop and think of the research, the production, the transportation, the processing, the journalism and advertising, there's a place for everybody in agriculture. And as we look at the food systems, I think that we need to realize that we're all partners in this. Senator Sanders has worked real hard on, when I first went to work for him 16 years ago, agritourism seemed to pop into his head. And I think way back then he understood the significance of making sure that people were educated and knew where their food came from. And we've been strong supporters of farm to school, and that's a really important part. Get the kids' hands dirty. I think of agriculture as being a place where you can learn to grow food, but I think you not only feed your body, but you feed your soul too. And one reason I say that is a couple days ago we were down at the White River VA Hospital, and they were organizing a veteran farmer coalition, which has started at the national level and now is growing stronger throughout the country. We have several farms already that are really involved in either bringing veterans on the farm to learn about agriculture, or veterans themselves that really want to start back in farming and recognize the therapeutic value of growing food. So that's been something we've strongly supported as well. Senator Sanders came out with legislation which has not passed yet, but to support our state and many of the states and people in our country, that involves the GMO labeling bill, with the idea that if a mother goes to a store and wants to know what's in the food she's going to feed her child, that she has that right. And so we continue to work on that as well. Yes, there are different ways to grow food, and the bottom line, I think you'll agree, is that we are sustainable, that we grow healthy food, and you can't stop but think that health issues are tied in so closely to our agriculture and our food production as well. So you guys have a big job ahead of you. When it gets to academia, I think that lots of times there's farmers and others that are way ahead of academia, but you guys are doing a good job of catching up. So I wish you well, and I'll be here to answer questions or visit with you during the break. And again, congratulations for taking the time on this important issue, and I wish you well.
Thank you, Jenny. We're trying. Next up is Patricia Coates. She's State Director for Representative Peter Welch. I don't know. My mouth is not working well this afternoon. State Director for Representative Peter Welch. She has worked for Representative Welch since 2006, is a former staffer of U.S. Senator Patrick Leahy in the Senate Ag Committee, and also a former high school teacher as well. So, Patricia, come on up.
Thank you all very much, and I really want to begin by just expressing I'm sure Vermonters' pride in UVM, and thanks for pulling together all of our work on food systems and for bringing a lot of very effective focus to food systems. So thank you very much. Just briefly, I think Congressman Welch views his job as supporting his constituents' success, and in this arena, we do that by following the lead of Vermonters who are doing incredible work to build strong local food systems and to grow our agricultural economy at the same time. Our work in Congress then is really driven by the leadership that we find here in Vermont. And in this Congress, our work reflects the art of the possible, taking advantage of not always apparent opportunities to support this leadership. I thought I would just give a few examples. There are the broader policy bills that move through the House of Representatives that Congressman Welch gets involved with and supports in order to, again, help these constituents who are leading change to be successful, including the Farm Bill, which was an amazing 3-year effort, to support healthcare reform, which is bringing a new focus on prevention, to support child nutrition and the school lunch, and all of the good work happening here in Vermont to bring healthy food into the schools. The smaller avenues for affecting some change in Congress are what we look for as well, and I'll give you a few examples of those. In the Farm Bill, Congressman Welch was able to include a small provision that's going to allow the state of Vermont to begin to use some of the commodities it receives from the federal government as cash. And hopefully that will help schools purchase local ingredients. Small things, small changes. We're trying to nibble around the edges here. This Congressman worked very hard to reform crop insurance so that it was easier for small vegetable farmers to purchase crop insurance. That came out of the lessons we learned after Tropical Storm Irene. Congressman Welch introduced a bill that would help small farmers afford to pay unemployment insurance. So these are not revolutionary, but these are all designed to support Vermont leadership and to grow our local agricultural economy. And you all may have heard this week that we unloaded a little bit of Vermont values on the Food and Drug Administration. And I don't mean to make light of the important work that our artisan cheese industry has done to lead the way in the nation on this, but Secretary Ross mentioned that we have some work to do with the Food and Drug Administration. We'll continue to help them understand the work we do in Vermont, to help them understand local food systems, to help them understand that food safety is a priority, and to work with us to develop protocols we can all be comfortable with, not to reject out of hand perhaps a traditional or a new technology that is proven safe. So we'll continue to work with the FDA. The key ingredients of our work in this space then are to support the leaders who are driving change and who are building up our food system. To look for opportunities, big and small, to transform the federal approach to food and agriculture. And finally, and most importantly, to value the relationships through which we work, learn, and make progress. Thank you very much.